My name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I've started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank. I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Hey guys, Benny here. Welcome to Stairway to Redemption. I'm back. So today was gonna be another solo episode. I know it's back to back. I'm sure you're tired of listening to me, haha. But there is quite an obvious reason why this one is a solo one, and it's like to report on the trip that I took to Canada. My first solo trip. I would rather update you while everything is fresh in my mind, rather than, wait 4 episodes to do like another solo one, like other things might come into it. This one's gonna be a short one. All right, so let's start. First thing first, the trip went well overall. I did not drink. Mission accomplished. I spent 12 days total, 12 days total in Canada when I planned on spending 10. I got stuck there for flight cancellation delay, but I'm gonna come back to it. I spent 5 days in Montreal, 5 days in Toronto, and the reason why I went to Canada for the first place was to watch the Formula One Grand Prix in Montreal, and I took the opportunity to visit Toronto, a city where I've never been before, but I heard amazing things. So let's start with the part in Montreal, those 5 days. So the 5 days in Montreal went really quick because they were planned. Like every single day was planned. I got there on a Friday. That Saturday I had planned with some family friends that I consider, them my aunt and uncle and their son, my cousin. I haven't seen them in over 5 years, and basically, that Saturday was having lunch at the house with them, hanging out. So that day was full. Um, I was a bit apprehensive at the idea of being bombarded with questions about me no longer drinking, especially when on the ride there, my cousin stopped and we stopped at the liquor store to buy a bowl of wine for the lunch. And when I got there also, my uncle took out a bottle of Jack Daniels and also Coca-Cola, shot glasses. I told him none for me, that I didn't drink no longer. He respected that and asked, why. Is there a reason? I told him that COVID was not kind to me, that I don't drink no more, and he didn't ask anything more about it, and that's true. I didn't lie, I didn't have to go into details about rehab and all that kind of stuff, like, because, I didn't want the conversation to be all about me. I didn't want them to worry, especially that I'm doing fine now. So, yeah. One thing that one scenario that played in my mind for some reason that were kind of plaguing my mind was like, I hoped that I didn't want also them to know in case they would blame my parents for what happened. Like there are like some family members who think that my parents had a very lax education on me and my siblings. I don't think so. And when I play, sometimes people in general, I think they're just not addicts. You play some crazy scenario in your mind, and one of mine was that um they will have the audacity of blaming my parents' education for my woes. And, of course, it didn't happen. But now thinking about it, that's definitely something that, like, I'm not sure how I will react if someone will to do that. I think, technically, I think I will keep my cool, but I cannot guarantee that because I don't think it's my parents' fault at all that, I ended up who I am right now. I will not blame them at all. So yeah, that Saturday went really well. First shot. By the way, like usually I will come back home to my Airbnb around 10, like 12 max, and just go to bed and try to go take the full day. So Sunday was race day. The race started at 2 p.m. So yeah, so I had to get there like pretty early if you want a good seat to watch the race. The race was pretty cool. It was a good race. Max Verstappen won. Nothing special there. I don't want to get into details about, like, he's a pretty good driver, but he's kind of dick, I think. Yeah, and after the race, there was a DJ performance by Martin Garrix. I don't know if you guys know Martin Garrix is also a Dutch DJ. He's friends with Max. He goes like on several F1 Grand Prix, and the whole thing is sponsored by Heineken. So, the little thing that I want to say, the circuit of the Grand Prix of Canada is on its own little island, and there's a casino on that island. So, like, it's not like city like really, and so there's like a lot of stuff to do on that island after the race. So you could go to the casino, spend your money, whatever, or you could go to the concert venue where Martin Garrix was performing. The whole thing was sponsored by Heineken, so there was Heineken Zero. I had one Heineken Zero. Yeah, that tastes like Heineken except it's non-alcoholic. Amazing thing happened. I was in the crowd dancing when like somebody came from the side and say hi to me, and they were wearing the same glasses. So I took off the sunglasses, and it's a friend from high school from Senegal that I haven't seen in 15 years. I'm kidding you not. I ran into a friend from high school that I haven't seen in 15 years. That's insane. Like, he lives in Boston now. Shout out to you, Mo. I'm not sure he's gonna listen to it because, he was drinking. He was there with his how do you say it? His stepbrother. Yeah, no, brother-in-law. What do I confuse those two, stepbrother and brother-in-law? Yeah, he was there with his brother-in-law. He got married recently. I mean, not I think last year or 2 years ago. Yeah, I haven't seen him since. And yeah, that was definitely the highlight of the day. Then after that, just went get dinner and got back home. So yeah, that was definitely a great day. Yeah, like Martin Garrix knows how to spin. Like, people were going nuts. That's for sure. So that was for the race day on Sunday. So yeah, but Sunday. Monday, I took care of like a couple few things, like doing laundry because I don't pack a lot when I travel. Went to the gym. And in the afternoon, I check the AA Canadian style. It went well. I went to a group of like young people, very welcoming. Um, like AA going AA abroad in different city, they are very welcoming. Like this is not a joke. Like the fellowship of AA will welcome you when you come and visit, when you are from out of town. It was fun. I would really look for it. It's not like that I needed a session to recenter myself. It was more I was eager to go just to see how they do things over there. And it's quite a bit different. First of all, the Serenity Prayer, they say the long version of it, which I didn't know there was a long version till I went there. And the secretary meeting is at the end of the meeting instead of at the beginning. So for those who go to AA, so I found those things really interesting. Yeah, so like that was Monday. Tuesday was going to the museum. I like museums, going to cities and museums. There was a nice expo on indigenous population of Colombia at the museum I went to. I think at the moment to the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. That was fun. And then I hang out with my cousins at the kind of barcade bar where you can play video games and drink at the same time. Yeah, and I invited another tenant of that Airbnb that, that's actually the first time that I got, I want to say, get really a long and extensive contacts with another stranger from the Airbnb I stay in. Usually when I do an Airbnb, uh, it's either one room and the person who lives there, or I just take the whole place. Like, I don't really go to Airbnbs where there's several tenants because, um, I don't know like what's gonna be the dynamic. I don't want to put that randomness in my trip. I don't want to risk it in case we don't vibe or we don't get along or something. So, but this time I kind of didn't have the choice. Airbnbs in Montreal that season are like ridiculous. The price are like this is a highway robbery at this point. Like I don't know what's going on. It's like they're quadrupling the price, and it was so bad that, like, I asked, because this is not my first trip to Montreal for the F1 race. Like I went there in 2019, and I had to go back to compare the prices I paid. It was like triple what I paid in 2019, and I blame Drive to Survive, that Netflix series, for sure. Like that, it's great. It gave like for those who don't know, Drive to Survive is a Netflix series that follows F1 driver year long, and since they started, I think they started actually in 2019, but since they started, there is a new revival for the Formula One interest, and the tickets are yeah, more expensive. The Airbnbs are way more expensive, but I had no idea it would be that much. Like it was ridiculous. And yeah, so I asked the host of the Airbnb, like, what's going on? Is that standard? If I were to come there, I don't know, maybe a month later, would that be the same price? He told me no, that like that's standard, that because the F1 week, the Grand Prix week, is the most expensive week in Montreal all year long. So yeah, I even heard of restaurant having two menus, the Grand Prix menu and the regular menu, because they all hiked their price, which kind of sucked. But you know what? I still had a great time. So yeah, Tuesday was just hanging out with my cousins. We went to a hookah bar, and then to, yeah, that barcade, where you can play consoles or video games and drink. I had Red Bulls and seltzer. One thing about all those places, Montreal and stuff. Like it's pretty common. I think all places I went to had a non-alcoholic menu, and that was something besides like soda, something like very either a mocktail or like a non-alcoholic beer or like seltzer, but it was not just like soda, coke, and water. It was so like I guess the culture, the non-alcoholic culture in Montreal is very advanced, uh, or like aware. I don't know. Advanced is a weird word, but they have options for people who do not drink. And that's great. So that was my trip in Montreal, and Wednesday I took the bus to Toronto, 6 hours. So yeah, the trip to Toronto was the part that was you know I was not worried about, but that I did not plan as tight as Montreal, because Montreal, I knew the people, I've been there before, I know what I was doing, I knew every single event I was gonna go to. Toronto was more freestyle. So yeah, the first night I got there, well, as soon as I got there, was just getting food, getting rested. I didn't go out or didn't do anything. Both trip, the first time the day I arrived, I usually just rest, and plan for the next day. I don't try to do anything. So, it's just also resting. It was important from the trip. Try to sleep well, not, oversleep till like 10 a.m. or anything, but just, sleeping well without knowing. We sleeping well with knowing that you don't have work in the morning is different than sleeping the same amount of time knowing that you have things to do in the day. Like there's a certain, like, I believe it's definitely a more relaxed sleep when you sleep during vacation. Like, you're gonna wake up, drink your coffee, just enjoy yourself, chilling, nothing much, you know. Um, yeah, and so basically the next day in Toronto, I went to the gym. Both cities, I went to the gym. I didn't go obviously every day as I will here, which come little parenthesis. When I came back, getting back in my groove was was not immediate, because I usually go to the gym 6 times a week and spend an average 2 to 3 hours, and my body was like, not right away. Because I haven't really worked out at the same rate when I was away. Even if I did go to the gym, maybe what, 3 times, 4 times in 10 days, I was already out of freedom, and I couldn't quite get back to it today. Back in the States. So yeah, I went to the gym. I check out AA that very first day, because I didn't had anything planned. So when I didn't had anything planned, I will just put AA in there just to check in Toronto how they do things over there. Same thing as Montreal. Like the secretary meeting is at the end. Oh, another funny thing. Like those odds are crazy. So when I went to the meeting in Montreal, I talked to the guys. We exchanges, like, we not numbers, but I introduced myself. And the meeting I go to Toronto at, one guy comes to me. He said, "Hey, yo, man, you were at the meeting in Montreal, right?" I was like, "Yeah, no way." And I look at him, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah." That he lives in Montreal, but his parents live in Toronto, and he came to visit. So I met the same random person twice in the span of a week in different cities. How crazy is that? Like, that's weird. Cool guy. Yeah, so I talked to them and to him. He even gave me a recommendation for like an amazing South no West Indian, like Jamaican spot, because Toronto has a huge Caribbean population, And when you want to try like anything that's West Indies Caribbean food, is definitely one of the best spots. And I did go to that place. Oh my God, like I had the best. I don't use I don't like using superlatives like the best of my life or things like that, because I think it's usually people exaggerate. But I had a solid, good, good curry there, and I would recommend, you know, that place to anyone who wants to visit Toronto. Yeah. What else did I do? Oh, I visited the museum, the Hockey Hall of Fame museum. Like I said, whenever I go to a city, I have to check a museum. I don't know. I like museum. They're peaceful. Usually the hockey museum was pretty loud because you had a section where you could actually either shoot shots in the net, or like be a goalie and have a machine shooting shots at you, and it's full of kids, you know. So yeah, that one was not on the quiet side, but it was still fun. I went to the CN Tower, obviously. That tower is pretty tall. Like the view from the top of it is it's crazy. It is said that on a clear day you could see the other side of Lake Ontario, but the day I went to was pretty cloudy, so you could just um see like you couldn't see the other side of the lake. The lake looks like a sea. And by the way, those who say that Toronto is to be people qualify or describe people describe Toronto as a cleaner New York. I will agree. There's some kind of New York vibe, New York City vibe, but I got more of a Chicago vibe than like, downtown Chicago, because of the lake, the similarity of the lake. The wind is pretty windy also. Um, and just, how clean it is too. But yeah, if it was me, how I would describe Toronto, I would say it's closer to Chicago than to New York. I don't know, maybe because the people are nicer in Toronto than New York. You cannot describe, I don't know, New York without the people. That's weird. Yeah, the people like make it most of the experience. I don't know. It's my opinion. So yeah, the CN Tower was great. I visited also the Blue Jays. Yeah, the Blue Jays Stadium is just next to the CN Tower. So boom, like, you can do both at the same time. I didn't go watch a game because I'm not that much into baseball, and the price also was yeah, too much. I was not ready to spend that money. Um what else did I do? Yeah, so that was the first 2 days. After the night before my supposed my planned trip back to the US, I went to a rooftop that was overlooking the city and Lake Ontario. Really nice rooftop with a great non-alcoholic selection, great mocktails, yeah. And I talked to few people there. Nobody asked, why you're not drinking or anything like that. You have also your usual loud, drunk people who try to flash money and, try to, we all know those guys who like trying to influence just to attract a certain kind of people. But yeah, that was not, it was still at the lesser degree than what you see in New York when you go to Soho, or like any rooftop place at Soho, like whether there is Mr. Purple or hotel you go, like, you go there, like it was that kind of vibe, but with better people. And yeah, with better people, I would say. All right, so that was the trip to Toronto overall. Now I was supposed to get back on Sunday, last Sunday, and that's where like shit hit the fans. So apparently I got stuck in my flight from Toronto to Newark, Jersey got canceled. And the alternative, it got canceled due to weather in Newark. There were the fires that were acting up again and canceling everything in Newark. In Toronto, we didn't even feel, or like Montreal, we didn't even feel those fire. Like the wind don't blow them that way. So I guess it goes south, then it veer like a little bit east to New York and Jersey. But yeah, like there was no, you would have no idea there were like fires in Canada when you were there. When I was there, that was very different. So flight got canceled. One option was to go to Ottawa and get a flight from Ottawa to New York the next morning, because the first option was to stay an extra 2 days in Toronto, and I was not gonna pay Toronto hotels, and I was also not gonna, I couldn't go back to the Airbnb I was at. So the cheaper option for me was to accept that transition. But then things happened. Like the flight, that morning flight, got canceled, and the flight. So I had to stay at the hotel, and the flight the next day also got canceled. So boom, I got stuck extra 2 days in Toronto, in the Ottawa, and I didn't have my luggage because I put my luggage in. I checked in my luggage, and it made it to New York, but I didn't. I guess they put it in a flight that was full, since maybe there was room for the luggage, but not room for people. So like they just flew it over there. And yeah, so I wore the same clothes for 3 days. That's not pleasant. I mean, even if you shower wearing the same clothes for 3 days, it's not pleasant. So I did that, and I started getting angry. I remember the first night in Ottawa when I got there, and I was so tired and frustrated, because uh, of the lack of accountability for by the airline, and the lack of transparency of what was going on, because it was not just the flight was canceled, it kept being delayed. I stay at the airport for like over 6-7 hours, and then they tell you it got canceled, and they don't help you with like hotels, anything, because it's considered act of God. And I was getting frustrated, kind of frustrated that like once you get at the hotel, you want to go to the bar, grab a good beer, and just go to bed. But hey, I cannot do that because, I don't drink anymore. So the thought just crossed my mind, but it was not like, it didn't, it just went and go. As soon as it crossed my mind, I was like, oh no, that's not the solution. So yeah, I went to bed really quick, but I was still frustrated. I'm not gonna lie, I just wanted to fight somebody. Like, I just wanted to fight somebody from the airline. I was not happy. I tried to be like as stoic as I can. Think of stoicism. Things, yeah, there are things that are in your control and others that are not. But man, it did suck, especially that you know, um, I traveled on the budget. It was the first time that I traveled on the tight budget. Usually, when I go on the trip and I was drinking, I was like, "Don't look at how much you spend. Just have a great time." This time is a bit different. My pockets are not that deep, so I had like little margin, and I didn't welcome those 2 extra days in stuck in Canada. And it was quite a bit challenging to remember you spent that I spent 10 amazing days, 10 great days. I didn't drink, I didn't, use drugs or anything. I was safe. Everything went well. I made some great connection. I met some people, great people. And it was quite challenging at first to not let those 2 days stuck in the airport and hotel airport derail the whole trip experience. And a friend reminded me of that while I was there. So like, hey man, you had a great time. Don't let those 2 days ruin the experience for you. And I snapped out of it, and it was great. Like, I really thank you that I really thank that friend for making things, because I understand some of you knows that I'm really into stoicism, that I read a lot about, Marcus Aurelius and the things that you can control and how to react. You can know those things, right? But like once it could, when the time comes to apply them, wow, it's different. It requires a little effort. I don't know. It's a little bit like playing sport. You might know a move, but the execution might not be there until you practice it several times. That's the analogy that I will use. Yeah, I think that's a good one. But overall, it was a great trip. It was a great trip. I really liked it. Yeah. So that was that was all for the trip. I'm gonna finish with this though. So yeah, while I was away, I turned social media off. So, I didn't have Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. I even stopped the daily stoic on my on the podcast page. And I found myself thinking of, should I do like a social media cleanup of the people I met? Because some thought were crossing my mind when I was making those new connection. I was making genuine connection based on shared interest or on people's curiosity of, curiosity of what they're into, or common share interest on anything beside alcohol. I consider now, I think, how would I describe the previous connection that all were old always where alcohol was always involved? Alcohol was the lowest common denominator. Everybody drinks, everybody gets shade faced, and when you drink and make a connection, that connection is not necessarily genuine. It doesn't matter if you see them after sober or anything. It's just, it made me think if I should, when I came back in the state in New York, if I should do a social media cleanse of the connections. Basically, I'm asking if my social media connection should reflect the connections that I really want, Like most of us, even with me right now, you have people you are friends with on Facebook that you are just not really friends with. That you just added because. And there are others that in that same energy, there are like others that I used to hang with, but now that I'm sober and when I look at their profile, I'm like, wait a minute, why am I friends with this person? It's not fault of their own, they didn't do anything wrong. It's just when I look at their page, I'm like, we are on such different wavelength, right? I'm not calling them stupid. I'm not saying we just at different wavelength. I'm not sure if I want to still be connected to that person. And this is um views that started like, this is some opinions and views of that started growing in my mind since I became sober. And I don't know if other people who are sober have the same views. But yeah, I even talked to it on my counselor, therapists, that like I noticed, especially after making that trip and making all those connections to people sober, taking those numbers sober, and having discussions that didn't involve a single drop of alcohol or even a single drug, made me think of yeah, if I want to get back to social media, which I know like the benefits of it, I should probably do a triage of the connections I want to be in there. But at the same time, I don't want to offend those people, because some of them are great, are great people on their own, terms. It's just I don't value the connection anymore. I don't understand what, bring us together. And this is something that I've been contemplating lately. All right. So that was it. It's about what 35 minutes episode. I think that's good for a solo episode. I don't like rambling. One more thing, like Steve Jobs used to say. Um, Guys, I will appreciate a lot if you could subscribe to my Patreon page. It's only $5 to get some extra content. Katie, Rich, and I have some amazing topics and film review that depict the addiction in fiction, and also it will help me a lot with the cost of running the podcast, because I'm not gonna lie to you, it start being like a bit much, because I want to pay my graphic designer, the amazing D, and I would like this thing to go to grow. So it's a little bit harder, but yes, please, $5 a month to get all the additional content on my Patreon page. I cannot wait to see you guys next week. Be safe. Bye.